Maria Thompson walked into the bank with tired steps. She had worked a long night shift at the nursing home, and her back still hurt. But she held her head high because she felt proud of the check in her purse. It was payment for extra hours she had worked, hours she needed to support her son. She promised herself that one day things would get easier. But for now, she kept moving forward, inside the bank. People stood in a short line, talking softly. Checking their phones and waiting, Maria took her place in the queue, holding her purse close every time she came here. She tried to stay patient, even though she always felt a little nervous. She did not like causing trouble. She did not like asking for help. And she never liked feeling small when it was finally her turn. She stepped toward the counter where a young teller named Kelly stood. Kelly looked up, her expression cold and uninterested. Her blonde hair was tied perfectly, her nails polished, her smile tight but fake. She scanned Maria from head to toe as if judging her clothes, her tired face, and even her skin color. "Can I help you?" Kelly asked in a slow voice, like she was talking to someone who did not understand English. Maria swallowed and forced a polite smile, something she had learned to do even when she was hurt. "Yes, ma'am. I want to deposit my check," she said softly. Sliding the check across the counter, Kelly picked it up and raised an eyebrow. She did not even look at the details before frowning. "Where did you get this?" she asked sharply. Maria felt a pinch in her heart, but she answered gently, "It's from my job." "I work at a nursing home." Kelly sighed loudly, rolled her eyes, and tapped the counter. "You people always come with these questionable checks," she muttered under her breath. Not quietly enough, the words hit Maria like a slap. Some customers turned their heads to watch, sensing the tension. Maria's fingers tightened around her purse, but she refused to lose control. She had learned long ago that raising her voice never helped people like her. "Ma'am, this check is real," Maria said softly, but with a little courage in her voice. Kelly ignored her and held the check up to the light dramatically. She shook her head. "Scoffing in front of everyone? This looks fake." "We don't accept things like this," she said loudly. Making sure others heard, Maria felt heat rise in her chest. A mix of shame and disbelief. She wanted to disappear, to run outside and hide from the staring eyes around her. Kelly then did something Maria would never forget. Without scanning it, without checking it in the system, without asking a manager, she tore the check right down the middle. The sound of ripping paper echoed louder than anything Maria had ever heard. People gasped, some even covered their mouths. Maria froze completely, her breath stuck in her throat. Her hands shook as she stared at the torn pieces on the counter. "That's what we do with fake checks," Kelly said, brushing the pieces aside like trash. Maria felt her heart drop. That money was important. That money meant groceries, rent, and school supplies for her son. She had worked honestly for every penny, and a stranger had destroyed it in seconds. For a moment, Maria could not speak. The humiliation was too heavy, the pain too sharp. Her throat tightened as she tried to hold back tears. She looked around and saw people watching. Some feeling sorry, some simply curious. Kelly smirked slightly, satisfied that she had ended the conversation. "Next," she said coldly, waving for the next customer. Maria turned slowly and walked away. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to stay steady. She would not fall apart in front of these people. Outside the bank, she sat on a bench and finally let a tear fall. Her son's face came to her mind, the one person who always told her she was strong. She wished she could believe it right now. What Maria did not know was that her moment of humiliation was not the end. It was the beginning of a story she never expected, a story that would turn the entire bank upside down. Because the teller who tore her check was about to learn exactly who Maria's son was, and the truth would hit her harder than she ever imagined. Maria sat on the bench outside the bank, her hands shaking as she wiped her tears. The cold wind brushed against her face, carrying the noise of cars and footsteps. But she didn't hear any of it clearly. Her mind was spinning too fast. She kept replaying the moment when the teller ripped her check. She kept seeing the smirk, the eyes full of judgment, the open disrespect. Maria had dealt with rude people before, but this felt cruel, personal, and unfair. She squeezed her hands together and whispered a prayer for strength. She didn't want her son Jaden to see her like this. He had always believed she was the strongest person he knew. She didn't want to break that image, not even today, as she sat quietly. Someone approached her slowly. "Excuse me?" "Ma'am," a gentle voice said. Maria looked up and saw a man wearing a suit and a bank badge clipped to his shirt. He was in his mid-40s, with warm eyes and a calm presence. "I think I recognize you," he said with a kind smile. Maria blinked, confused. "Recognize me?" "I'm sorry, I don't. You're Jaden Thompson's mother, aren't you?" he asked. Her heart jumped for a moment. She nodded shyly, surprised that anyone would know that. The man's smile grew wider, filled with admiration. "Your son is brilliant," he said. "We're extremely proud to have him working with us." Maria's eyes softened. Hearing someone speak kindly about her son always made her chest warm. Jaden was her pride, her joy, her reason to keep going even on the hardest days. She had raised him alone, working 2 jobs and sacrificing everything. And watching him grow into a strong, intelligent young man had been her greatest reward. "He's a good boy," Maria said softly. "He works very hard," the man nodded. "More than hard, ma'am. He's extraordinary." Maria didn't say anything, but inside she felt a small light return. Her son's achievements were not just good, they were powerful. Meaningful, respected, she always knew he was smart. But she never understood how important he had become at his job. Jaden rarely talked big about himself. He only told her simple things like "work went well" or "I'm learning a lot." He didn't like to brag. And he never wanted to make her worried. "I was actually on my way to the lobby," the man continued. "We're preparing a special presentation today." Maria wiped her eyes. Trying to hide the redness? "Oh, that sounds nice," she said quietly. "You should come inside," he insisted with a gentle smile. "I think you'll like what you see." Maria hesitated, her heart still hurting from the humiliation minutes earlier. "I don't think I should go back in," she whispered. She felt too embarrassed to walk inside again. The memory of the torn check still burned in her mind. But the man shook his head kindly. "Please, come with me," he said softly. "You deserve to be there." His tone carried no judgment, only respect, something Maria had not felt in a long time. Slowly, she stood up, adjusting her purse with trembling fingers. The man walked beside her as they headed toward the large glass doors of the bank. Her steps were hesitant, but she followed him anyway. She did not know what was waiting for her inside. A small part of her feared the teller might see her again. But the man walked with confidence, leading her straight past the counters. He guided her toward the center of the main lobby where people were gathering. Maria looked around nervously as screens lit up across the room. Bright images flashed, and the mood inside the bank felt different. Excited, alive, the man stood beside her and whispered, "It's about to start." Maria watched as the largest screen in the lobby switched from the bank's advertisement to a new image. The first photo made her gasp softly. It was her son, Jaden, smiling at a company event. The caption appeared in bold letters, "Meet the genius behind our new security system, Jaden Thompson." Applause filled the lobby. Warm and proud, Maria's hand covered her mouth as tears welled up again. But this time, they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of pride. The screen continued, showing him giving presentations, shaking hands with executives. Explaining new technology, people around her whispered, "That's him. He's so young. Amazing work." Maria stood quietly. Overwhelmed, her eyes fixed on the screen. She could not believe her son's face was displayed across the bank like a celebrity. Her heart swelled, almost too full to hold her emotions. At that moment, she forgot the pain from earlier. She forgot the cruel voice, the torn check, the humiliation. All she could see was her son shining. All she could feel was pride that washed her pain away. But destiny was not done behind her. The teller who tore her check stepped out of her booth. The teller looked at the screen, then at Maria. And her expression changed instantly. Fear crept into her eyes as she realized who Maria truly was. Maria stood still, unaware that her story was far from over. And the teller who hurt her was about to face consequences she never expected. Maria stood in the center of the lobby, her eyes fixed on the giant screen glowing above her. Her son's face shined across the entire bank like a warm sunrise. She felt a mix of shock, disbelief, and overflowing pride. Her heart raced. But this time, it was not from humiliation. It was from joy. The applause around her continued, and people smiled at the screen as if they were looking at a hero. Maria couldn't move, her feet rooted to the ground. Her hands trembled softly, but she didn't hide them. For the first time that day, she felt seen, respected, and valued. Not because of her clothes, not because of her job, but because of the son she raised with love. The screens continued to play more images. Jaden standing with engineers, Jaden presenting ideas, Jaden shaking hands with the bank's top leaders. Every single photo made Maria feel lighter, like a heavy weight was slowly leaving her chest. She wiped her eyes again, trying not to cry in front of strangers. But one tear slipped anyway, landing on her cheek gently. The man beside her, the one who brought her forward, smiled proudly. "He's a remarkable young man," he said softly. Maria nodded, too full of emotion to speak. Meanwhile, a shift in the room's atmosphere began. At the counter across the lobby, Kelly the teller stepped away from her station. She looked up at the screen casually at first, just like everyone else. But when her eyes landed on the name Jaden Thompson, her body froze completely. Her mouth fell slightly open, and the color drained from her face. For a moment she didn't breathe. Her mind raced, connecting the dots. The last name Thompson, the resemblance in the smile, the respectful whispers from staff, and then the memory hit her like a punch. The woman she had insulted, humiliated, and dismissed only minutes earlier, the woman whose check she tore, the woman she treated like nothing, that woman was the mother of the bank's new technology partner. Kelly stepped back, bumping into a counter behind her. Her legs shook, her hands trembled, and fear spread through her like cold water. She whispered to herself, "No, no, this can't be." But it was real, painfully real. Other staff members glanced at her. Sensing something was wrong, she tried to hide her panic. But her guilt was written across her face, on the other side of the lobby. Maria still hadn't noticed Kelly's reaction. She was lost in the images of her son. The one boy who stayed up late studying while she worked night shifts. The one boy who learned coding on an old laptop she bought from a second-hand shop. The one boy who promised her he would change their lives one day. And here he was, making that promise come true in the biggest way. But the moment of peaceful pride didn't last long. The bank's branch manager, Mr. Pierce, stepped into the lobby. Attracted by the applause and the presentation, he was a tall, authoritative man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. When he saw the giant screen, he nodded proudly. When he saw Maria standing beneath it, he smiled warmly. But when he saw Kelly trembling by her counter, his face shifted. Something wasn't right, and he sensed it instantly. He walked toward Kelly, his steps firm and unhurried. "Are you okay?" he asked in a low, controlled voice. Kelly swallowed hard and nodded. But her eyes stayed glued to the screen. The manager followed her gaze. And when he saw the connection, the mother below the billboard and the teller's sudden panic, something clicked in his mind. His expression hardened. "What did you do?" he asked sharply. Kelly's breath caught. "Nothing. I didn't. Her words tangled into each other like broken threads. Customers nearby watched, sensing drama building in the room. Meanwhile, the slideshow continued, this time showing a picture of Jaden with the bank's CEO. The caption read, "Launching our future, a system built by the best." More claps filled the air. Maria lifted her head proudly, unaware that justice was already unfolding behind her. The manager stepped closer to Kelly, his voice sharper now. "Tell me exactly what happened at your counter," he demanded. Kelly's throat tightened. She now understood that hiding her mistake was impossible. Her eyes darted toward Maria, and in that moment, Maria finally noticed her, the teller who tore her check. Their eyes met. Maria's expression was calm, yet wounded. Kelly's expression was full of fear and guilt, and the entire bank seemed to hold its breath. Because now, the truth had no place left to hide, but this was only the beginning. What would happen next would change the day and the bank forever. The atmosphere inside the bank changed the moment the manager's voice sharpened. People who had been clapping now turned their heads. Sensing a confrontation rising like a storm, Maria stood quietly under the glowing billboard, still emotional from seeing her son's face. She didn't yet understand that the same room celebrating her son was about to expose the cruelty she had suffered only minutes earlier. But others could see the pieces coming together, and the branch manager, Mr. Pierce, was already walking toward the truth. Kelly stood stiffly near her counter, shaking slightly. Her fingers twisting around each other, her eyes refused to leave Maria. Every second made her regret what she had done more deeply. The weight of her actions pressed on her chest like a stone. She had torn a real check, insulted a hard-working woman. And now that woman turned out to be connected to someone the bank depended on. Kelly felt her world shrinking with every breath. Mr. Pierce reached her and spoke in a low but firm tone. "Kelly, what exactly happened between you and that customer?" He did not raise his voice, yet the entire room could feel the pressure in his words. Kelly's mouth opened and closed like she was searching for a safe answer. She forced a nervous laugh. "Oh, it was nothing serious. She brought a suspicious check, so I handled it. The manager asked, his eyebrows lifting slowly. His eyes were sharp, trained to read lies the way others read books. "Yes," Kelly whispered. "I thought it was fake." Mr. Pierce didn't blink. "And did you verify it before you made that decision?" Kelly swallowed hard. "Well, no, but it looked, not right." Before she could continue, someone stepped forward from the small crowd forming around them. It was the same customer who had recorded the entire incident earlier. "A middle-aged woman holding her phone in her hand, sir," she said clearly. "I think you should watch this." Kelly's knees almost gave out when she saw the phone raised toward the manager. Her face turned white as paper. "No, wait," she stuttered, reaching forward, but it was too late. The manager tapped the play button and watched silently. The video revealed everything. Maria speaking softly, Kelly rolling her eyes, the insults, the tone, the dismissive attitude, and finally, the moment Kelly ripped the check in half without hesitation. The sound of paper tearing echoed through the recording and through the lobby as people listened. Gasps filled the room again, but this time they were directed at Kelly, not Maria. Maria watched from across the lobby, her hands clasped tightly. She didn't feel anger. She didn't want revenge. She simply felt the sting of those moments again, the humiliation returning like a cold breeze. But she also felt something else, the strange sense that justice was finally stepping forward. She had not expected it, but she welcomed it quietly. The manager finished watching the video. He looked at Kelly with disbelief mixed with disappointment. "Is this how you treat customers?" he asked calmly. Kelly shook her head wildly. No, sir. It was a mistake. I didn't mean you tore a customer's paycheck," he said. Still calm, but far colder now. "You insulted her. You humiliated her. And you didn't follow a single policy we have." Kelly's breathing quickened. She looked small, weak, desperate. "Sir, I'll apologize, I promise. Just give me another chance," her voice cracked. But the manager didn't move. He turned and walked toward Maria, who stood frozen, not knowing what to say or do. When he reached her, he bowed his head respectfully. "Ma'am," he said softly, "on behalf of this bank, I want to apologize deeply for what happened to you." Maria blinked, surprised by his sincerity. "I'm so sorry you were treated this way," he continued, "and it will be addressed immediately." She nodded quietly, her voice too soft to answer. But the relief inside her heart spread slowly like warm sunlight. Then something unexpected happened. The manager took a step back and said, "Ma'am, I would like you to come with me to my office." "Please," Maria was startled. "To your office? Why?" she asked gently. "There is a meeting you should be part of," he said simply. People murmured around them. Kelly looked terrified, Maria looked confused. But the manager looked certain. He guided Maria toward the glass hallway leading to his office. Every step echoed through the lobby. Every pair of eyes followed her with respect now. Not judgment. Maria's heart pounded. She didn't know what this meeting was, or why she was needed. But she sensed something important was about to happen. something that would connect her humiliation with her son's success, and something that would bring consequences she never imagined. Because the bank had just celebrated her son on every screen, and now it was time to face what they had done to his mother. And the truth was about to reach the man who mattered most, her son himself. Maria sat quietly in the manager's office, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The room felt too big, too bright, too official. She wasn't used to sitting in places where glass walls and dark wooden desks made everything feel serious. She stared at her fingers as they trembled slightly. She tried to calm herself. But her mind kept replaying the moment when the teller tore her check. She tried to breathe slowly, but the memory kept tightening her chest. The manager, Mr. Pierce, stood in front of her, speaking softly. "Your son will be here soon, ma'am," he said gently. "We already called him." Maria looked up in shock. "My son?" she whispered. "Why did you call him?" "Because he deserves to know what happened," the manager answered firmly. Maria felt embarrassed. She didn't want her son to worry. She didn't want him to see her like this, tired, stressed, humiliated, but it was too late. The bank had already reached out to the engineering firm. They told them there was a situation involving Jaden's mother, and Jaden didn't even think twice. Minutes later, heavy footsteps came rushing down the hallway. The office door swung open quickly, and Jaden appeared, breathless, eyes wide with worry. "Mom," he said, his voice filled with alarm, crossed the room in seconds, and knelt beside her chair, holding her hands gently. "Are you okay? What happened? Why didn't you call me?" he asked rapidly. Maria tried to smile to calm him. "I'm fine, baby," she whispered. "Don't worry. I'm okay." But Jaden could see the truth in her eyes, the redness, the pain, the silent shame she tried to hide. He clenched his jaw. He knew something terrible had happened, something that hurt her deeply. The manager stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Mr. Thompson," he said carefully. "Thank you for coming." Jaden stood slowly, still holding his mother's hand. "Tell me everything," he said, his voice steady but cold. The manager didn't waste a second. He explained what happened, the disrespect, the insults, the torn check. He told him how a customer recorded the entire incident. He even showed him the video. Jaden watched silently, not moving, not blinking, but his eyes grew darker with every second. When the video ended, Jaden's hands tightened into fists. A quiet anger rose in him, not loud, not wild, but powerful. It was the kind of anger that came from love, the kind that came when someone hurt the person who protected him his whole life. "Where is the teller?" Jaden asked, his voice calm but sharp like a blade. "She is outside," the manager replied. "We have not taken action yet because we wanted you to see this first." Jaden nodded once. He walked to the window of the office and looked out into the lobby. He saw customers going about their business. He saw employees working at their desks, and then he saw her, Kelly. Sitting on a small chair near the side wall, she looked terrified, pale, and small. Her hands twisted nervously in her lap, but Jaden didn't feel sorry. He remembered every night his mother stayed up for work so he could study. He remembered how she always encouraged him. Even when she was exhausted, he remembered how she never complained. And now someone had treated her like she was worthless. Jaden turned back to the manager and spoke clearly. "This bank partnered with my company because of my work," he said. "You've trusted me with your system, your security. Your future?" The manager nodded. Listening carefully, and yet Jaden continued, "Someone in your staff felt comfortable humiliating my mother." The manager lowered his head, embarrassed and ashamed. "We will correct this immediately," he said. Jaden shook his head. "Correcting it is not enough," he replied firmly. "This isn't just about an employee disrespecting a customer. It's about a system that allowed her to think she could get away with it." Maria touched her son's arm gently. "Jaden," she whispered, "don't cause trouble for yourself. Please." But Jaden shook his head softly. "You didn't deserve this, Mom," he said. "And I won't let anyone treat you like that." He turned to the manager again. "I want to see her," he said, his voice calm but unmovable. The manager nodded slowly. He walked to the door and motioned for the teller to be brought in. As the door opened and footsteps approached, Maria's heart beat fast again. The room felt heavy, tense, filled with truth waiting to explode. Jaden stood tall beside his mother, and the teller walked in with fear in her eyes, knowing she was about to face the son of the woman she had humiliated. This time, there would be no lies, no excuses, no way out. Because the son she had underestimated was not just a customer, he was the bank's most valuable partner, and he was here to stand for his mother, stronger than ever. Kelly entered the manager's office slowly, her hands shaking so badly she had to hold them together. Her eyes darted around the room, then froze on Maria. Maria sat quietly, her expression calm but deeply hurt. And beside her stood Jaden, tall, serious, and focused. The moment Kelly realized who he was, her breath caught in her throat. He wasn't just any customer's son. He wasn't just a young man with a promising career. He was the face on the bank's billboard. He was the developer behind the bank's new security system. He was the partner the entire institution depended on. Jaden looked at her, not with anger that exploded, but with anger that chilled the room. He stood straight, his shoulders firm, his eyes steady. He didn't need to shout. His silence was loud enough. Kelly swallowed hard, her voice weak. "Mr. Thompson, I never meant to." Jaden raised his hand slightly, stopping her words. "You tore my mother's paycheck," he said quietly. "You humiliated her in front of everyone. You called her check fake before even checking the system. And you did all of that while representing a bank that claimed to respect its customers." Kelly's lips trembled. She tried to step forward, but her legs felt like they might collapse. "Please. It was a mistake. I was stressed. I didn't." Jaden cut her off again, his voice steady. "Everyone makes mistakes," he said. "But you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice." His words struck like truth she couldn't escape. The manager stood to the side, his arms crossed tightly. He didn't defend Kelly, didn't soften the moment. He knew this was the consequence of her behavior, and he knew the bank could not afford another second of her negligence. Jaden stepped closer, not aggressively, but with authority. "When you looked at my mother," he said, "you didn't see a hard-working woman. You didn't see someone who deserves respect. You saw someone you thought you could belittle." Kelly's eyes filled with tears. She tried again. "I didn't mean," but tears didn't erase what she had done. Jaden looked at the manager. "I want immediate action," he said firmly. "If this bank continues to work with my system, if my name remains on your walls, then this cannot be ignored." Maria touched his arm softly, whispering, "Baby." "I don't want to cause problems," but Jaden gently shook his head. "You didn't deserve this." "Mom," he whispered back, "and if I stay silent now, someone else will go through what you went through." The manager nodded slowly. "I agree," he said, turning toward Kelly. "Your behavior today was unacceptable. You violated policy, you acted with bias, and you damaged a customer's financial document." Kelly sobbed quietly. "Please. I'll change. I promise." The manager didn't move. "Kelly," he said firmly, "you're terminated effective immediately." Kelly's knees buckled slightly as the words hit her. She covered her mouth, tears falling fast. Her voice cracked as she begged. "Sir, please, I need this job. I'll do better. Please." But the manager remained firm. "I'm sorry," he said, "but the consequences of your actions are unavoidable." Silence filled the room. Maria watched with mixed emotions, hurt, relief, and sympathy, all blending together. She didn't want anyone to suffer, but she also knew Kelly's actions couldn't be ignored. Jaden remained steady, not celebrating. Not cruel, just resolute. Sometimes justice is quiet. Sometimes justice simply stands where truth was denied. Security escorted Kelly out of the office. Her footsteps echoed down the hallway as she cried softly. When the door closed, the room felt calmer. But the tension of the day still hung heavy in the air. Jaden looked at the manager again. "This bank needs better training, better systems, better respect for people," he said. The manager nodded. "We will rebuild our staff culture," he promised, starting with what happened today. Then he turned to Maria. "Ma'am," he said gently, "your check will be reissued immediately. The bank will compensate you for what happened." Maria shook her head slowly. I don't want money, she whispered. I just wanted to be treated like a human being, her voice trembled. And no one deserves to feel small because of someone else's behavior. Jaden took her hand. You won't ever feel small again, he said softly. Not while I'm here, the manager stepped forward with a respectful tone. There's one more thing we'd like to do, he said. A way to honor both you and your son. Maria frowned slightly, confused. Honor. She repeated softly. The manager nodded. Yes, he replied. And you'll see it very soon. Maria didn't know what he meant. But Jaden did, and he smiled for the first time that day. Because he knew something big, something beautiful was coming next. The next morning, the city streets buzzed with their usual noise. Cars honked, vendors shouted, and people rushed to work carrying coffee cups and tired eyes. But for Maria, this morning felt different. She woke up slowly, her heart still heavy from everything that happened at the bank the day before. Even though justice had been served, the memory of the humiliation still stung her. She made breakfast quietly, humming softly, to calm herself. But her thoughts kept drifting back to her son's face when he defended her. The strength in his eyes, the way he stood beside her like a shield. It reminded her of all the sacrifices she had made to raise him. Every long shift, every second job, every sleepless night had led to that moment. Jaden walked into the kitchen dressed neatly and holding his laptop bag. Morning, Mom, he said gently. Maria smiled softly. Morning. Baby. He sat at the table, watching her carefully. He could tell she was still holding yesterday's pain inside. Are you feeling better today? He asked. Maria nodded slowly. I'm okay, she whispered. Just a little tired. He reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You deserve better than what happened yesterday, he said firmly. And I promise, something good will come out of it. Maria didn't quite understand what he meant, but she trusted her son. She always trusted him, after breakfast. Jaden asked her to get dressed because he wanted to take her somewhere. Where are we going? Maria asked, confused. He smiled mysteriously. You'll see. Mom, they stepped outside into the warm morning light. Jaden called a rideshare, and soon they were driving toward the city center. Maria looked out the window, watching familiar buildings pass by. But when the car stopped, she felt her breath catch. They were standing right in front of the same bank where everything had happened. Her heart tightened for a moment. Jaden. Why are we here? She whispered. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Because something is waiting for you, he said. Something you need to see. He guided her toward the front plaza of the bank. People were walking in and out, talking, checking their phones, going about their day. Maria felt nervous at first, but then she looked up, and the world around her seemed to stop above the main entrance. On the largest digital billboard the bank owned, a new image stretched across the entire screen. Bright and powerful, it was not the usual advertisement. It was not a picture of the CEO or the fancy credit card promotions. It was her, standing beside her son. The photo showed Jaden smiling proudly with his arm around her shoulders, and Maria standing beside him. Shy but strong, beneath the picture, glowing in bold letters, was the caption, "The woman who raised our city's brightest mind," Maria gasped. Her hand flying to her mouth, her eyes filled instantly with tears. She took a shaky step forward, staring up at the screen. I don't understand, she whispered, her voice trembling. Jaden smiled softly beside her. The bank wanted to honor you, he said. But I wanted everyone to know who you really are. People around them began to notice the billboard. Some stopped walking and simply stared. A few pointed at the screen. Recognizing the woman standing below it, isn't that her? Someone whispered, that's the mother of the engineer, another person murmured. Smiles spread through the small crowd forming near the entrance. Maria wiped her eyes, struggling to breathe through the overwhelming emotion. She had never imagined her face on a billboard. She had never expected respect to come so loudly, so publicly. She had spent her life in the background cleaning, serving, caring, sacrificing, but now? The whole city saw her, not as a tired woman with 2 jobs, not as someone easy to ignore, but as the mother who raised a brilliant young man who changed the future of the bank. She turned to Jaden with tears streaming down her cheeks. Why would they do this for me? She whispered, Barely able to speak, Jaden pulled her into a gentle hug. "Because you deserve it," he said softly. "Because everything I am is because of you," Maria cried against his shoulder. Not from sadness, but from pride, from love, from the deep relief of being seen after a lifetime of being invisible. Customers passing by stopped to smile at her. Some even applauded quietly. Others nodded with respect. For the first time in her life, Maria felt honored, appreciated, celebrated. The manager stepped outside and approached her respectfully. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, "the bank owes you this recognition, and we are truly grateful for everything you've done, especially raising someone like Jaden." Maria wiped her tears again. She didn't feel humiliated anymore. She felt powerful. Jaden placed an arm around her and looked up at the billboard. "This is just the beginning, Mom," he whispered. "You're not invisible anymore." And as the screen glowed above them, Maria realized something she'd never expected. The humiliation she suffered had turned into honor. The disrespect she faced had transformed into recognition. And the woman the teller tried to silence was now the face everyone admired.